There might be something that's completely off your radar right now in the midst of Ohio State's dominance. Jeremiah Smith, their wide receiver, is sensational. They just crushed Oregon by 20 points. They're on a roll. You hear all these comments. I don't think anybody beats Ohio State when they play their best, and that's probably true, but we don't know if they're going to play their best going forward. Here's something that might be off your radar completely. If Ryan Day loses to Texas, he is getting fired. That's just the truth of the matter here.
Really?
Yes, they can't be overwhelming favorites against Texas and lose. And, oh, by the way, we're just suddenly reminded of, well, you lost to Michigan just a couple of weeks ago again as well. This might be completely off the radar, but I am absolutely telling you, if they lose as huge favorites after they've been so dominant, the disappointment factor will be through the freaking roof. I don't think he survives if he loses to Texas. I don't at all.
I'm going to file it under not entirely impossible, but improbable that that's the outcome. However, I will argue in all things, style points matter in college football. So the way you lose to Texas, I think, is going to be a huge determination if that outcome is met. I feel like if they lose a close game as favorites, that's one thing. If they get their doors blown off them, if they go out there and somehow get embarrassed by Texas, and, it isn't because of some fluky thing like, heaven forbid, an injury or injuries to major players on Ohio State, but they just get flat out outplayed, out-schemed, out-game planned, what have you, then, yeah, I could see a louder argument for that, especially after the disappointment in the regular season against Michigan, especially given his record against that team up north, all those things, right? I really do feel like it's improbable, though.
I agree. I think it's more about Quinn Ewers than anything else. I really was – that was the biggest part of that game with Texas that was really disappointing, was how Quinn Ewers played against an Arizona State defense that just was not ready to play. I mean, I take that back. They were ready to play. They're just the talent gap was so big, and Texas just, I mean, it was the lollipop guild out there. Like, Ewers was just out there, tossing little cherry bombs out there, and Arizona State made some really nice plays on it, to be fair. But I think what will prevent a blowout in this game is Quinn Ewers and just how conservative. Like, if Texas goes up big, they're not going to keep pouring it on. Like, Texas will throttle down, play with their food, just like they did against Arizona State, and Ohio State will come back and make it a game. I don't see a scenario where Texas wins big. Now, you can make the case that it doesn't matter. Texas wins big, Texas wins small, Ryan Day gets fired. It's not an argument I've heard yet, Brian. Like, I feel like the Warden called after the Tennessee game and kind of got Ryan Day off the hook, and then they were playing with, I know you hate the house money term, but like they looked like they were playing with no fear, like completely loose in that game against Oregon. There was no tightness. All of that tightness and the tight sphincter vibes that we were getting with Michigan in that game, it was like it was all gone after they beat Tennessee and kind of exercised some demons. So I don't know if I agree that he's going to get fired if they lose the game. Now, if they do I don't see a scenario where they get blown out, but if it does happen, that changes the argument. But if they lose a game like 24-21, you really think he still gets fired?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yes. Because that's the thing is, it's funny with Ohio State how we're just in completely different spots week by week. Like, if we rewind after the Michigan loss, he was on death row. Yes. Right after that loss. And it was like, the only thing that's going to save this guy is if he wins a title. And now we fast forward to the here and now, and we're going into a semifinal game. And it's like, wait a minute, you can see a scenario where if he loses to Texas, he's gone? Really? Hell yes, I do. Abso-freaking-lutely. Wow. Because they've been so dominant the last 2 weeks. They just punked an undefeated number one team in Oregon by 20 points. And that's one of those scores where I think it was worse than that final score indicates. And you go from that to losing against Texas, who's lucky to be here. You know, if the targeting penalty is called, they might not survive.
Yeah.
They had to convert 4th and 13 to get to where they are. And that's the team who takes Ohio State down. Yeah, I would favor Ohio State to win the game. But that's why I bring this up is it's probably not even on your radar. Ohio State could lose this game. And if they do, I think Ryan Day is gone.
I think the drumbeat certainly gets louder amongst members of the fan base and potentially even decision makers around that program, but I don't think he gets fired. I think that program has a little bit of what certain football franchises in the NFL and college football programs have when they've had it too good for too long. Like they don't understand how lucky they are. Like they really don't. Like, and this is fans get spoiled sometimes. Yeah. And you know the old saying, pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. When all of a sudden you look at Ryan Day, who has done nothing but win and win and win for you after the Urban Meyer years, and you say, yeah, there's got to be greener grass on the other side of this fence. I mean, we got to find a way to beat Michigan. I would assume, I would imagine cooler heads would prevail, but we've seen this time and time again, and history has repeated itself, where a winning coach is exiled because he's not winning against the right teams or at the right time of the year, and then dark days follow. I mean, Ohio State is sitting at the top of the college football mountain right now. I would say with so much changing underfoot with, how NIL and whatever else, transfer portal and TV rights deals and conference realignment all happening now, you're going to change the face of your program now? Unless there is some sort of personal feuding or vendetta against Ryan Day, I'm unaware of that's happening behind the scenes. I think they keep his job because you need some stability in a program, especially in one that's having success.
I agree with Rich. I think and I understand the arguments because I have them all the time with my Penn State friends. Oh, big game, James, and we got to fire him. Who are you hiring to replace him is the key. And I think stability matters in college football because there is none elsewhere in the sport. And so to throw a team through upheaval like that for a loss, I hope it doesn't happen because I'm probably betting Ohio State in the game. But I'd be interested to see if they did lose a close game, how that would play out. Because personally, and I'm wrong all the frickin' time, so don't take what I say as gospel. I have no inside information on who gets fired, who gets hired. I'm at the whim and the mercy of the news cycle, just like most of you. I'm not an insider. But that would be a shocking story for me. If the game's on Friday, they lose, and I wake up on Saturday morning, we're doing this show, and I have an alert on my phone that says Ryan Day fired, I would be shocked. I really would be shocked.
It wouldn't be an alert. It would be a screenshot from me saying that Ryan Day got fired.
And you would have every right to take your victory lap because this is like a long shot. I think if I were to price this, now, again, if the game is a blowout, all bets are off. But let's say it's a tight game and Ohio State just comes up short. I would still price it as a long shot for Ryan Day to get fired. So if you're right, then, yeah, you should take your victory lap for cashing your ticket.
Yeah, I just think that, listen, all this idea about stability, and I would like to pick that apart for a second, okay?
Okay.
What are we talking about with stability here? I would look at underachieving. Again, this is all based on an if. Listen, Ohio State has the best shot to win a national championship, and they very well might. They should win a national championship, and I think that's why this becomes intriguing, is if they don't, what's the fallout? I would look at Ryan Day, again, if they don't win a championship, and especially if they lost to Texas. It would be so disappointing. And this, stability thing, what are we talking about? A bunch of Big Ten wins? I think Ohio State would look at it and say, they would look at it less as a stable guy in Ryan Day and more so a guy that's holding them back. We can't beat Michigan. We haven't won a title. We just lost in the semifinal to Texas, who was lucky to be here. We can't find someone else who can beat Maryland and Northwestern? Really? He's the only guy? I don't think they would look at this as we got to keep this stabilizing force in
Can I ask
Ryan
a follow-up
Day.
question?
Yeah.
What if they lost in the Natty?
Same thing.
Tight game.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I think
This is
I think
natty
even,
or bust for Ryan Day.
I think even more so against Texas in the semifinals. Like, you didn't even get there.
Yeah.
But-
I would agree with that point that there's a higher probability of
Yes.
him being fired if he loses in the semifinal or the national championship, but I still file it all under unlikely. And to push back a little bit on the stability and the cultural piece of this, you know, James Franklin, for all he isn't, what he is an incredible recruiter.
Yeah.
And both in the high school recruitment and development of players, but also in the transfer portal. Ryan Day, same. You know, what for everything James Franklin isn't, as far as a head coach, what he is a great builder of staffs. He's surrounded that program with real, both from the playing field, but also from the coaching staff, real NFL talent and collegiate, high-level collegiate talent in his coaching staff. Ryan Day has done the same. Now, and I think Penn State fans and Ohio State fans have been poisoned with a little bit of the same overabundance of you know, it's like, hey, you know, maybe 1 shot whiskey good, maybe 10 shots whiskey not so good. I think they've dipped their hand into the honey pot so many times, it's like they don't realize how sweet that first taste was. Yeah. And when you get away from the honey pot, when all of a sudden you bring in a guy who's not a good recruiter, who all of a sudden changes the culture, who isn't a good builder of staff, who isn't a good developer of talent that comes into the program, dark days follow. And it's really hard to undo that type of stuff. So I'm not saying, Brian, I'm not saying it's way outside the lexicon of potential happenings in college football over the next month or two. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just file it under unlikely because of how transitive this whole system has become. You do need a stabilizing force.
Yeah, I think the timing of it, too, because of the transfer portal and everything, like, it's really tough to fire your coach this late in the process. We're late, like, we're talking about almost, you know, starting the spring practice already, you know, in 2025. Most teams, they end the season in December. Most teams that fire their coach don't make a bowl game, don't make the national championship, don't make the college football playoff semifinals, where we're this late in the process. And so you have to always spin it back. And this is always what we gravitate. Trust me, if you don't think we've had this conversation in my Penn State group chat about James Franklin over the last decade, it's like the most popular thing we talk about. But I always go back to the same point. Who are we hiring to replace him?
It's always somebody. That's the thing.
But, like, who? All right, so I give you carte blanche, Brian. You can pick any coach. Now, he has to be available. He can't be, like, the head coach of, like, he can't be, like, you know, a current head coach in the NFL.
You know what would
That's,
be
like,
great?
completely
What would
impossible.
be a perfect twist is if Ohio State canned Ryan Day
and hired James Franklin
and hired Lou Holtz.
Oh,
Remember
no. I
the
was gonna
back
say,
and forth that he had
they
with
fired
Lou?
each other.
Oh, that would be great.
But, like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around who Ohio State could hire that could raise the bar, that's A, currently available, B, willing to take the job, C, you know, like, it just, I feel like that pool is so small. You're trying to hit a moving target when you're on a high-speed train. There's really, like, one, I mean, like, who would you hire?
That's where I differ with you guys is, again, based on an if they lose to Texas, if they don't win a national championship, I don't think the bar is as high as you guys think it is. I just don't. Like, you lose to Michigan all the time. You don't win championships. Like, you were huge favorites, and you still didn't get it done. How high is the bar exactly? Like, what Ryan Day is, again, and I hate to keep bringing this up because I'm putting it in this space where I'm like, he's getting fired. He's getting fired if he doesn't come through, which he should. Yeah. If he doesn't come through, he's the Mario Cristobal of the Midwest. That's what he is. He's a guy who can recruit real well and can't get it done and can't win and can't beat the rival and can't. That's not good enough at The Ohio State. And they're going to look to improve instead of looking to just be average at best or a little bit better than average. They want excellence. They don't want better than average. And that's exactly what he'll be if he doesn't win it all.
Oh, man. I mean, and look, pride comes before the fall. I mean, and so if there are any Ohio State upper echelon donors or decision makers who are listening to Countdown this morning right here on Fox Sports Radio, heed my warning. If you think you're too good for Ryan Day, there could be dark days ahead. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Ryan Day has his flaws. I don't even know the guy. Like, I've listened to his press conferences. Obviously, we cover him as analysts watching and covering college football, but I don't know him personally. I don't know, again, if there's any infighting or if there's any feuding or if there's any, issues that have, roiled up behind the scenes that maybe all of us are blissfully unaware of on the outside. We just have the information that we have to go with on the outside looking in. And the information I have, just from the standpoint of watching a guy create a culture, especially after – kind of a catastrophic finish to the former head coach and keeping some semblance of winning as he put his fingerprint on the program and recruiting as he put his fingerprint on the program and development of players and real NFL talent and continuing, sort of the faucet of double-digit win season after double-digit win season. I mean, it's been wide open since he's been there. I get it. It may not be up to everyone's standards, but goodness gracious, we've seen this so many times before. You always look over the fence and you always see a better tended flower bed and think, well, that could be our yard too. Not so fast. We've seen this mistake before.
Yeah. I don't have much to add besides the fact that I still don't know who. Like, I need to see a list of candidates. Like, if I look at a list of candidates and I'm like,
if you saw Ryan Day as the candidate, you'd shrug your shoulders also when he took over initially.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't remember what I was thinking when he took over, to be fair. I don't remember that.
You were never like, look out, man, Ryan Day's going to do special things.
I also
like,
hate Ohio State, so I'm always biased against everything they do.
Well, I'm with you, Brian. Brian, I promise you, like, there are so many examples of this throughout the history of the NFL or college football. The reason why I said NFL first, because the first name that came to my mind was Sean McVay, who was like basically a child taking over a professional franchise. What was he, just outside his 20s?
Right.
And I was like, how is this going to work? How is he going to lead men at that level, guys who on the field have more playing experience than he has coaching experience? And he found a way. So I'm not saying it's impossible for him to be replaced and for Ohio State to continue on a good path. But I'm saying it's unlikely he gets fired, and it's unlikely that they replace him with somebody better.
Everybody can be replaced. Everybody can be replaced.
Yeah. We got to move, but I'll say this real fast is it's not that Ohio State is too good for Ryan Day. It's that, again, if he doesn't win it all, you're striving for better, okay? Like the Chiefs, they had Alex Smith. He led the league in passer rating. They wanted to be better than that. And they struck gold with Mahomes. I know that doesn't happen all the time, but they could have been content with something like, this guy's good. We're winning. He's doing well. Like, why try to improve? It'd be like having Kyler Murray as your quarterback. He's better than average. Where are they going? It's not that they're too good for him. It's that they want to do better. Or Derek Carr, he's better than average, but where are you going? Like, you want to be better than just we're above average. And that's the thing. If Ryan Day doesn't win it all, Ohio State should be striving for better than, hey, we're pretty good. Like, we're winning a lot of games. You're not winning the games that matter, right? Like, I think
I'm fine if it's Ohio State's average forever, actually. I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, there you go. There's a silver lining.